And we are back again for another lesson. Last week we talked about the basics. We talked about our fingers, we talked about intervals, major and minor thirds. And this week we're going to continue with that, but this week we're going to talk a little bit about the grand staff. Okay, so the grand staff, I think I briefly mentioned last week. We have what's called a treble clef and a bass clef. The treble clef tells us to play with our right hand, and the bass clef tells us to play with our left hand. So if we look over here into the top corner, in the corner over here, this right here is called a treble clef. And down here, this is called a bass clef. Treble clef, another name for the treble clef, is the G clef. Why is it the G clef? We are going to find out a little bit more about that in a second. And then another name for the bass clef is called the F clef. Why is it called the F clef? We're going to find out about that as well. Another thing with music, the clefs or the staff. For the treble clef, there's 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then same thing for the bass clef, there's 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There could be more lines, and there are more lines. There are more lines, they're called ledger lines. Why are there 5 lines? Okay, so 5 lines, it's easier for our eyes as humans to see. Anything more than 5 lines, and it gets really confusing. They're ledger lines, and the ledger lines are actually a little bit smaller, so that way you can, and usually the ledger lines only cover the one note. And that's anything that's above the staff or below the staff meaning the 5 lines. And that's the same with the treble clef up here in the right hand, or the bass clef down in the left hand. When students are learning the piano, there are mnemonics that are used, especially in Western societies, so we're going to use those for right now. In the treble clef, which is right here, we're going to look at only the spaces. Only the spaces. Those spaces correlate to the keyboard, and they're called, the first space is F, the second space is A, third space is C, and then the last space is E. So I'm going to play that on the keyboard so you can see. And then also on the keyboard, I want you to notice something on what's happening on the keyboard, because I'm playing every other key. I'll explain. So here we go. F, A, C, and E. Okay, now if you look at the keyboard right here, you'll see F, then we skip a white key. Then you'll see A, we skip another white key. C, we skip a white key, and then E. And then we come over here, and we look at the staff. We look at the treble clef in the staff. We see F, F, A, C, C, and E. And if you notice all of them, here we're skipping the lines in between, and down here on the keyboard we are skipping the white notes in between. And then you can also look at right over here on the piano, you can see my fingers. So that is a way to help you learn the notes of the staff, especially for the treble clef. Just if you can write this down on a piece of paper, try drawing the 5 lines right here, and then you can try drawing the G clef or the treble clef, or you could just say write treble clef for right now. We do need to learn how to draw the treble clef, but for right now, as long as you can recognize it, that'll be good. So once again, F, A, C, E, you're skipping all of the lines. Each of these notes is only on a space. And then down here, if you look at the keyboard, they're skipping every other white key. So F, A, C, E. Okay? So that's treble clef. And those are the spaces on the treble clef. Next, we're going to talk about the lines on the treble clef. The lines work exactly like the spaces. So basically, we're going to skip every other line. So lines are E, G, B, D, and F. Okay, and as we're skipping every line, when you see it on the keyboard, we're skipping every note as well. So hopefully that's helpful. So we start with E, G, B, D, and then F. And so I'm going to take off the F for right now and just look over here. You can see it E on the line. Skip to the next line, G, skip to the next line, B, skip to the next line, D, and then the last line, F. Okay, don't try to play all the notes at the same time. You probably won't be able to, but you might be able to. If you can, awesome. If you can't, don't worry about it. You just need to develop the stretch for your fingers. All right, so let's look over here at the keyboard itself. E, G, once again, we're skipping a white key in the center. G, B, we're skipping a white key. And then B, D, oops, G, B, we're skipping a white key. B, D, we're skipping a white key. And D and F, and we skip a white key. So if you can remember the lines, the first one for the spaces, it's called face. So if we come over here, face, F-A-C-E, it spells face. Okay, for the lines, it doesn't really spell anything, but it does, one of the sayings that we say, or I was taught when I was younger, was every good boy does fine. Okay, so for all of you girls out there, or you women out there, I don't know what to say, but you can make up a mnemonic for yourself. This is just what I was taught. It's probably not politically correct, but it helps. So every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, F. And once again, we're skipping the white keys in between. And we're skipping the spaces. We're only playing on the lines. So what I would recommend doing is just taking the time and creating flashcards. Flashcards are awesome. And if you don't have, what I used to do is I would take a piece of paper and I would basically tear a piece of paper out. Let me tear it out so you guys can see. So I have a piece of paper right here. And I take it and I would fold it into fours, just like this. Right there. And then right there. And then from there, I would take some scissors and I would cut them up. And then on one side, I would place, say, I would draw the staff, or you can figure out a way to just say treble clef. And then on the other, and I'd draw the 5 lines, and I'd put the note if it's going to be on a space, or if it's going to be on a line, and I'd place the notes just like that. So, and then I would use them as flashcards. There are actual flashcards you can buy. You could go places like Guitar Center. And then there are other flashcards. I have some that but this spells ACE, which is ACE, and it's left off the F because ACE. It's left off the F because the F is in the bottommost space, but this is only the 3. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can go to Guitar Center, and there's also a lot of other. You can check on Amazon.com as well, and even you could check on Amazon to see. So that's it for the treble clef right hand. And next we're going to talk about. Oh, I forgot one thing. Why is it also called the G clef? Okay, so I'm going to come back to the lines. So I played all of the lines. E, G, B, D, F. The second line, notice how the circle right here goes through the second line? That second line is G. And that's why it's called the G clef, because of that second line and where the circle is on the treble clef. All right, so that's it with the treble clef. Next, we're going to talk about the bass clef. Okay, so the bass clef is a little different. We're going to start with, I'm going to come over here, A, C, E, G. Once again, okay, it's not F, A, C, E, it's the bass clef, but we're starting with A. We skip to the next space, C, next space, E, next space, G. Okay, so if I don't want to complicate this for you guys, but if you look up here, it's F-A-C-E, and then down here, it's A-C-E, and then G. So if we were up here in the treble clef, the next space is going to be G. And then we come down here to the bass clef, G, A, C, E, G. I think that's kind of cool. It might not make sense. Hopefully it does not confuse you too much. Okay, A, C, E, G. And then with that, basically, we're skipping the white note, every other white key on the keyboard itself. And on the bass clef, every space, skipping all of the lines in between. And over here, A, C, E, and G. All right, so that's it for the bass clef. Next, on the bass clef, we have the lines. And the lines are going to do the exact same thing. It's going to be every other line, and it's going to be every other note on the keyboard. So the first line is G, B, D, F, A. Okay, and once again, if your hands are too small or not ready to be stretched, you have to kind of stretch your hands, and it comes through time, like practicing with the piano. But once again, A, G, B, D, F, A. We're skipping every other white key. G is the first line, B is the second line, D is the third line, F is the fourth line, and A is the fifth line. And so what you want to do once again is create flashcards. Write them out yourself. And if you don't want to write them out, you can buy some online and just practice with the flashcards. But this is an easy way, because if you can remember, if you can remember that it's only going to be the lines and then G, B, D. Let me rephrase that. I'm not sure of the exact way to explain that, but basically, if you can like woodshed or work with the flashcards and know that you're working on every other line, that's what I was going to say. Remember the lines first, or remember the spaces first. If you can do one first and then the other, it's going to make it a lot easier as you're reading music. So once again, G, B, D, F, A, and right here, skipping every other white key. Up here, it's only the lines, none of the spaces. And right here are the note names, G, B, D, F, and A. Okay, so that is it for the bass clef. But remember, there was one other thing. I also told you that the bass clef can also be called the F clef. Why is that? All right, in between these two dots right here, that note is F. So just like up here, where in between this circle, that second line is G. In between these two dots, that note is F. And so another name for the bass clef is the F clef. And that's it. That's music is written on lines and spaces. You have 5 lines and 4 spaces. 5 lines in your right hand and 4 spaces, and 5 lines in your left hand and 4 spaces. So if you can create some flashcards and start just working on memorization, as you memorize it, it's going to make it easier as we work on pieces in the future, or as you learn more music. So that is the lesson for today. I hope that you guys are having a great week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Stay healthy and stay safe. Until next time, thank you.